Xander. I'm the founder of Realty Collective that I started 20 years ago to defy the stereotypes associated with real estate brokers. There was a chat here on the bottom that you can ask questions for. Farah's going to put some information there now, and there'll be relative information that gets posted there as the talk progresses, because we can't cover everything in this 1 hour session. There's a lot of complex moving parts with real estate, but we're going to go over the overarching experience and then give you some links and resources to help dive deeper into some of these things. So that's the chat. Farah's going to launch a poll. You're going to get a recording after this class to share with others from YouTube. And there'll also be an audio version on Spotify if you just want to listen to us talk. You'll get a book called Buying into Brooklyn ebook that's like 100 pages that I've put together that has a lot of relevant information about the buying process. And it's a great resource. And I hope people feel like it's a lot of value, because there's a lot of gatekeeping and misinformation, and New York City is a very specific beast. So when you're Googling online for something about real estate, it's different every state. So you can't really rely on that. And that's why we've compiled a lot of information all in one place. It's very specific to the New York City market. And that's mostly the 5 boroughs. And after this, you're going to be able to contact any of us to reach out and ask any questions that you have. If you want to have one-on-one conversations, not have them here, to help you figure out. Our time is available to you for free, no charge. Don't feel like that, oh, I'm calling a lawyer, I'm calling a mortgage broker or a real estate agent, that, oh, they're going to charge me for my time. No, we want to help you make the first right steps to making decisions on this. It looks like my face is frozen, but you can still hear me. Turn the Wi-Fi off, right? Was my face frozen, but you can still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off on my phone. You can do it, phone. That maybe will help. Who knows? Also, I have so many tabs open on my computer. That might be the other problem. Oh, we do a Women in Business blog series. So if you have any featured businesses that you're here in Brooklyn that you would like to highlight, please reach out. It has been a great source of press for small businesses for us. And because we just have amazing SEO, we've been having a blog for over 20 years because we're 20 years old, or for 20 years, since now we're 20 years old. And yeah, I think that's the introduction. Just going to give you the gist of what's happening in this moment is that the lawyer that we were going to work with on this class last minute had a emergency in their family and can no longer make it, like told us 10 minutes ago. And I'm just going to fill in the blanks on the basics of what's going to be happening in the lawyer bit, and can answer questions as best as my ability about that stuff. But my job normally is to be your buyer's broker, right? I'm a matchmaker, a therapist, a sounding board, whatever you need to help you navigate this. You need a best friend, or you need someone to be your accountability buddy. That's understanding what your goals are and what your needs in this process is my job. And I've been doing it for 20 years as Realty Collective, but I had my license before that. I only started Realty Collective 20 years ago. So I've been doing this a very long time. And it's my job to help you move past and protect you from your own instincts. This gets very emotional. I call it an emotional roller coaster. My job is to make it as least stressful. Real estate is going to be stressful, right? But we're trying to make it as least stressful as possible from my end as well, as much as I can from my end. I can't control everybody else on this, but I can control myself and the things that we're part of. And what else? And also, I think that people are really confused about how real estate brokers get paid these days with the broker fee. In New York City, I would say 99% of the time, the sellers are still paying the buyer's broker because they understand the value of that role. There will be cases when that's not the case, but I have not done a deal since the law changed or run into any circumstances where that has been the case. So don't feel like, oh, I'm not going to be able to pay you, and working with you might be at my disadvantage. It's actually at your advantage, because sellers, and that's what's in the national level, national industry changes have happened. There has been a shift, but in New York City, deals are complicated. Co-op board applications, co-op paperwork, condos, even houses, it's all very complicated. And they know that they need somebody guiding that buyer through this process that's educated, that's going to get them to the finish line. And that is worth something to them. And that's why they're still willing to pay brokers. So there are 3 people that I always say you need to get things started. And that is your lawyer, your mortgage broker, and your buyer's broker. So I'm going to let the 3 team members, before you even go and looking at houses, introduce themselves. John Lenham, you want to introduce yourself as our mortgage professional?
Yeah. So I am John Lundholm. I'm with Quintessential Mortgage Group. We are an independent broker, one of the biggest in the state. And I've been doing lending for 20 some odd years. I've done well over $1 billion of loans. And my goal is always to deliver a really great experience so that you run out and tell lots of other people to call me. So I spend a lot of time on expectation setting and hand holding. And what I'm known for is communicating a ton, coming up with really creative solutions, finding the right fit for people, and then walking through the process in a really enjoyable way. And I'll second Victoria here that the buying process is a very heavy emotional lift. There's a ton of stuff wrapped up in it. You're throwing around your life savings. You are finding a new home, which is almost a reflection of your personality in a way. And then on top of that, depending on what type of property you're buying, the bank or the co-op or the sellers are picking through your life. And so you're wondering, do they like me? Am I going to be good enough? All that sort of stuff. So there's just a lot of emotional weight. So that's what we're here for, is to guide you through that and to point out what's coming and help you to navigate everything nice and cleanly and simply so that you can spend more time enjoying the buying of your new home than fretting about the details. We'll handle that and take you through a lot of it. So that's what I do, is I take a complex process and let you focus on the fun of it.
So these are the three people you need. And that's why I would say it's a job. You want to interview us. You want to feel comfortable. You want to make sure you communicate your needs. Do you only want to be communicated via text message or phone calls or emails, or you want to work in we have a project management platform and you want to leave notes and organize things there. It's one of the great resources I think that we have for buyers, is that we have set up a library of resources. So at every step of the way, I'm assigning you information to learn about what's happening on the back end and giving you deadlines of things that you need to do. There are a lot of deadlines in the financing part of it to make sure you're meeting those deadlines so you can get to closing. But it's really important that you like the people you work with, and other things like they have a good track record. They've been doing this a long time. They have industry relationships. It really, really makes a difference. You don't want to hire your lawyer that it was your uncle that sometimes does real estate. You don't want to be just picking some guy that you walk into the bank with and get his card for Chase. And just because you have an account with Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, does not actually help you in a lot of cases. Sometimes they have some small credits, but I would say that those people are usually a lot of out of touch with what really happens on the ground in the mortgage space. So the person that's not here is the lawyer, and their job is really they look over the contracts, they do go over the due diligence, they look for red flags in the financing and the building's financials and budgets, and say, up here they have been not saving enough money to pay for all their fees, and they have this work coming up and this and that, and they're going to analyze all of that for you and then make sure you're signing a good contract to get you to closing as well. So their job really doesn't come in. It's nice to pick them ahead of time, but they don't really do anything until you've designated the property. On my end and John's end, we are making sure you're getting pre-qualified and doing all this work ahead of time, helping you find the property before you get there and we can put in an offer. But when you're putting an offer, you want to make sure your lawyer is picked out ahead of time. So we're not scrambling to interview people, and you pick the person that's a good match for you and that you like them, because it's a last minute choice. You're stuck with them, and it might make your life a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And that's why we refer people, right? Like I refer John because I know what it's like to work with him. I know that we're going to close deals together and that we're going to work together. When you have somebody that's not part of your team or a network that you do deals with all the time, they can sometimes make things more stressful or even blow up a deal. So that is why you want to interview and pick these three people. And that's why we've designed this workshop, to help guide you through so that you can be prepared to make the right decisions as you go down this journey.
Yeah.
And it can be
And
today or it can be in 5 years. We're just helping you trigger the first steps.
yeah,
Would you say something,
and
John?
yeah, I was going to say, Victoria and I will usually be the early contacts. We'll help set you up to have success in finding the place, and then in winning the bids, which right now the market is very competitive in certain corners. And so winning the bids is challenging, but there are some strategies and things that really work great that we can walk you through, that are tailored to the individual and to the property. And then the attorneys come in, and their job is to really keep you safe and counsel you on how to put everything together so that once you've got the property, once you've got the bid, you are able to get to the other end of it and not take unnecessary risk. And so they'll walk through a lot of that detail with you to put it together in the best way to cover your bases.
Correct. Now that you have figured out that you are interested in buying and you've started talking to all of us, making sure that you've interviewed and feel comfortable, why are some of the reasons you might buy now? The rents are like just in the last week going crazy because of all this tariff stuff. And then but they've always been too damn high. Like that, the rent is too damn high is an old phrase. Nothing's changed. Then you get to be in control, right? And I think that's a lot of time. John and I talked earlier today about what we're seeing in the market, and that being in control feels like empowering right now because everything else seems a little bit out of our control, and that we're just things are just happening to us. But by buying a place and owning a place, you are in control of your monthlies, what you can do, the design. If you want to rent it out, if you want to go on vacation, you can rent it out for a short amount of time. And you're building equity. Like you're paying somebody's mortgage if you're renting. It's either yours or your landlord. So if you buy something, pay yours, or you rent, you're paying your landlords. And you'll never see that money again. And so if you're in the position to buy and you plan on staying in New York City 5 years, you should be doing everything in your power to make these first steps and get into that purchasing something. So that's the why buy now. And then we have a little calculator called the rent to buy matrix that the New York Times has made. So there are scenarios where you shouldn't buy if you're in a rent stabilized apartment or rent controlled or those situations. But there's some math. You're going to put in your rent now and what it would cost and how much your savings and how long you plan on living in New York. And it'll tell you when to that if you should be buying. So it doesn't have to be, there can be some math helping you support this decision, not just, oh, I want to own my own place and I have the down payment to do it. So you've assembled your team, you've figured out you want to buy, you've gone through this math, and there's some other team members you might need that we're going to be able to give you referrals for, right? An inspector, a contractor, an architect. You want the three basics though to start this process. And I always tell everybody start here before we even go looking at property. That's your homework. Get your attorney, figure out which mortgage professional you like, and you're already talking to me. So that's a done deal. Then where do you start looking? Shouldn't start looking until you have your pre-approval. John's going to tell you about, okay, yeah, you like John, you want to work with John, but what's the paperwork John needs to give you so that we can actually go look at property and be seriously looking, because you're not seriously looking unless you have a pre-approval.
Yeah. And the pre-approval serves a couple of functions. It gives you a good guidance on what you can afford so that you're looking in the right band. And I talk to people all the time a lot of people think it tells you so that you don't go out of your budget. But I actually talk to a lot of people too who are under budget because they're being a little bit overly conservative. And so we'll talk about, could you get a little bit more room in there? And what would that look like? So the pre-approval gives you a good band so that you can understand what you're affording. In order to do the pre-approval, what we're really doing is looking at 3 out of 4 of the main pillars of the loan. So for a mortgage, there's income, assets, credit, and property. So we set aside the property as to be determined. You're going to go and find the property, and we look at the income, assets, and credit. So credit, we're looking at, do you pay people back when they loan you money? Obviously pretty important for this venture. And then there's different levels of credit and different types of loans for different levels of credit. The short answer is basically the higher the better, of course, but there's not necessarily a yes, no amount on credit. So if your credit is not absolutely perfect, that's not a non-starter. There's options. So then you have the income and assets are the other two big pieces, which really set your limitations. The assets are basically how much can you put as a down payment, plus there's closing costs. New York has a lot of closing costs, but there's also different levels as far as how much down payment you can do, sometimes as low as 3% down on different programs. We could talk about how much do you need and what properties require. Sometimes co-ops will require a little bit more on a down payment. And that's your asset picture. Then you have your income piece, which is really the crux of it. People think of a mortgage as a loan against the property. It's actually a loan against your future income, and it's backed by the property. So the income needs to stand, and we basically are just looking to see that you have enough income to make the payments every month. The last thing the bank wants is to own property. Anytime a bank forecloses, they get cleaned out. There's so much regulatory stuff and expense and things to dispose of a property in foreclosure, that they absolutely, that's the last thing that they want. They would much rather have you owning that property and keeping that loan and paying interest over time for months and months and months and months. So they want to facilitate you buying the property and have it be a good fit for you so that you can continue to own the property on into the future. So the income is basically making sure that you can afford it on a monthly basis. And so we'll do an analysis, different types of income, allow for different things. You have job income, you have self-employment income, you have retirement income, you have asset-driven income, you have real estate-driven income. So there's cash flow lending. So there's a lot of different types of income. And this is, again, where it's important to talk to someone like me, where I can walk through what kind of options you might have. And some people talk themselves out of the buying process and think, oh, I'll never qualify for this because I don't fit this box, not understanding that there's a whole bunch of different boxes that you can fit into. And that's, again, where I come in, is giving you that guidance and helping you walk through different options. And if there's multiple boxes you can fit in, which ones have pluses and minuses, and therefore which ones are the best fit for you and for what you want and what you prize and what your decisioning is. So that's basically the pre-approval, is running through those numbers and coming up with an amount so that you know how much you can afford. The other big function of the pre-approval is that you are able to tell a seller that you've done your homework, because particularly in a competitive market, if there's multiple bids, how does the seller know that you're good for what you say you're good for? The pre-approval. That's how you're signaling to them, I've done my homework. I'm working with someone who knows what they're doing, and they've checked me out, and they say I'm good for it.
And so, do you think that there's something happening right now that's changing in the mortgage space right now for buyers? I know that a lot of my buyers are worried about what's happening with the tariffs and the stock market, and it's affecting their 401k and their savings, so they're not going to look as good on paper. Let's just talk about some things that are happening right now, because I think that's important for people on this call.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot going on, a lot of change and a lot of moving pieces in the world right now between the bond markets and the rates and the asset values and property prices. So again, getting that pre-approval is really critical, because you analyze what you're looking like in the current moment. But then for someone like me, I also will keep in touch with you as you're searching. I'll call you every Thursday and say, hey, and check in and make sure that everything still checks out, so that if the stock market falls off a couple of points, or if rates go up or down by an amount, you're aware of how that impacts your approval. So first off, when we do the pre-approval, we'll do a call to run through all of the inputs and where you can move things and what levers might change numbers. So if you find a property that has a tax abatement or a different amount of maintenance, or if the rates move, how does that all impact your approval? So that, again, you can do a much more intelligent and informed search and find the right property at the right time. But then also, as you go through the search each week, we'll check in, we'll say, hey, and just have a status check and talk about anything new that week that's impacting you. So right now, for example, the tariffs, a tariff by definition raises the price of international goods, so that it makes domestic goods, which are higher priced in the world of tariffs, it makes them more competitive. So by definition, a tariff is inflationary. Inflation, not great for mortgage rates. So the more that the tariff conversation is happening, the more that puts pressure on the mortgage rates. On the other hand, you have some slowing of jobs and slowing of economy and things like that generally tends to send the mortgage rates the other way. So you have a couple of competing narratives. And my take on the situation right now is that basically, very broadly, I don't think the rates are going anywhere in the medium term. So if we talk today and we talk in 6 months, we talk in 12 months, the rates are probably going to be in a pretty similar area. But the road from here to there is not going to be a straight line. It's going to be a bunch of ups and a bunch of downs and just a lot of volatility. So there might be plus minus 0.5% or 0.75% on the rate between now and then we end up in the same place. So this also gets into a little bit of strategy around your search. where if you are working on different properties and working on a purchase, there can be some opportunity if you play the market a little bit on the rates. It's not for everybody because there's some risk to it, but you may be able to capture if the rates dip off at some point. If there's some headline news that comes out on a Thursday and the rates dip off into the weekend, that may be your opportunity to jump on the rate if you're in contract and you're moving forward on a property. And that again is where I'll try to be consultative with you and give you some good guidance on that.
You're like,
Um,
lock now, lock now.
yeah, I'll help people figure out and say, okay, if you lock now, here's where the rates are. Here's what's happened the last couple of days. Here's what seems to be happening going forward. And then everybody can make their decisions about what they think they want to do. And also a lot of, again, expectation setting. A lot of times I'll have that conversation in advance because as when things are moving quickly, sometimes you get overwhelmed by the decisions of, is it going to go further? Is it going to turn around? Is it going to go back? So we'll say, okay, but in advance, if this happens, here's how we'll want to act. If we hit this number, we'll want to jump on it, or we'll want to
Right.
wait, or we'll want to pull the ripcord if it goes to this number, or any number of different things like that, so that you can have a good strategy going into it.
Yeah, I think that setting the expectations of how this process is going to go is like a huge part of making sure that when there is a moment of decision making or influx from the other side, if you've prepared and had these conversations ahead of time, you can handle them with grace and ease because you have a good broker and good mortgage professional lawyer
And this is the thing
explaining all
about,
this to you.
yeah, and this is the thing about real estate is it happens very slowly and then all at once.
Then all
So,
at once.
so it's really key to set the foundations and tackle the questions and cover all the bases in advance so that when everything all of a sudden starts flying, you're not getting up to speed at that point.
And I
And
think that the other part of that really is though, that's why people are like, I'm going to get pre-approved with Rocket or Quicken. And I'm like, not in New York City. I understand how those platforms work in other parts of this country, but you need somebody that's on the ground that understands how co-op application board works and how buildings work here and how these buildings they look at the finances within your bank. And so you cannot use an AI mortgage platform for banking in New York City. One day, maybe, but not today. It has been a
that's,
nightmare anytime anybody has ever tried to use that. And that's the same thing about lawyers. That's what I was saying before about not hiring your uncle. You want industry experts. So when you're also now you found us, now you're going to have to find your lawyer, and I'm going to give you a list of referrals that I like working with that are great. They are all great for different reasons. They're all great lawyers, but they all have different personality types and way they handle things. And I'm always surprised that's which person somebody picks, but they align with that person and they communicate well with them and they can digest what they're saying and take their advice. You want to make sure that everybody here that you're talking to, you can be like, oh, I know that their person, I can listen to that person and take their advice because I know that they know what they're doing.
and this is somewhere that Victoria is fantastic. You note as working with her, she has a wealth of resources and information so that she can give really good guidance on these things, particularly the New York specific stuff, the brownstone stuff and the co-op stuff and the mortgage tax stuff and the mansion tax stuff and all these quirks that are really only in New York world. You need people like Victoria who have this depth of experience and knowledge base. And I try to be a resource on these things as well. I've done thousands of co-op loans. I've owned and sold my own. I helped write the co-op guidelines at a top 5 lender at one point. I contributed a couple of things to their guidelines. On a personal and a business level, I'm happy to answer questions as people have on those too. And it is not the sort of thing that you can Google that efficiently because New
It's
York
not
is,
Googleable. It's not
there's a couple of
Googleable.
states that are New York, Maryland, Texas. There's a couple of places that just do things differently.
We definitely do things different here in New York City, that's for sure. And I'm blushing, John. Thank you. You're so sweet. And it's such an honor to work with people that recognize how great the other people that you're working with and get to do deals with them over and over again. And that's how we do it. And so for the lawyer bit, and that's the other person you'd be interviewing at this point, you want the same thing. You want to hire a lawyer that is doing every day, they're doing closings, transactions, real estate transactions. They're not also doing some other legal thing like divorces or criminal law. And do they have a staff? Are you going to be working with them or are you going to be working with one of their legal aides? You want to know if I'm hiring you, are you the person I'm going to be talking to all the time? Or is somebody else going to do the paperwork and I'll talk to you all the time? And I'll have to also talk to them. You want to understand what the dynamic it is. And that's why you want to interview these lawyers to get there. So once then you found the property, we're going to do a little bit more research, but they're going to be just waiting at the ready for you to tell them which property it is that you want to move forward, and then they'll start the due diligence. But it's important that they have industry relationships. The best thing that happens when I send out the deal sheet that's going to follow up from this class, and I send it out with me and John and Jody on it, and it's going to go out to the other side. The other lawyer is going to be like, "Oh, hey, Jody, great doing another deal with you." And same thing. And the other broker is gonna be like, "Oh, hey, John, glad you and Victoria are working together on this. I can trust this deal is gonna happen." Those are the kind of deals I would say are 99% of the time I'm doing, but that's the kind of people you want to hire, is that they have name recognition in the area that you're looking in. If you take me
Yeah.
to the Bronx, I'm not going to know all the lawyers and the mortgage professionals that have the corner on the market here. But Brooklyn, I know most of the people that are the brokers, and the lawyers and the mortgage brokers that are really, this is their, because
Yeah.
you, as a buyer's broker, I also want to have relationships. You want me to also have relationships with the other brokers. Like I can call the other brokers and have done the other ones that have been around 20 years as long as I have. They all know me for a long time. They're like, "Oh, done deals with Victoria before. I know how she is. I know she's going to close this deal. Great. Let's pick this one." Or say, "Hey, Victoria, we want your deal, but we need you to do this." That's the kind of person you want to work with. It
Yeah.
could be me, it could be John, it could be the somebody else. Those are the things you're looking for, and it's hard to find, honestly. A lot of green people just get into this industry, think that it's going to be easy, and then make people going through this process is life more stressful than it needs to be. So now we're going to go on. Now we got the setup of what you need to do to prepare, and we're going to talk about how you find a place. So you've gotten your pre-approval in hand. You called some lawyers. You know that you've really one person, but you have some backups. You're thinking about still through. So you have your team together. Now you're going to think about what you want. Do you want to be in the same neighborhood? Can you afford to be in the same neighborhood that you're renting in? Do you want to buy right away? What's the timing like? Is this your lease? Do you have a lease that you're committed to? Do you have a budget that you need to stick to? So budgeting, thinking about, okay, I can't be in a co-op in Brooklyn Heights because there's no co-ops in Brooklyn Heights that don't have a maintenance that is under $1,000 a month. And that's going to skew me out of there. So what does the monthly nut you need to cover? And that's going to include the mortgage plus the maintenance or common charges from the property. Then family, right? How big is your family? Are you a family of one right now, a family of two? Is your family going to be expanding? So many people that don't even have children yet are talking to me about school district. You don't have that conversation yet. That's a 5-year plan. This is your starter place. When that baby is 5 years old, then that's when you can start worrying about school district. The school district you might be in can change a lot in 5 years, but it is an important part of the conversation. And then your lifestyle. Do you work from home? Do you want to be by the park? Do you want to be in the center of everything? Do you want to be close to a park so you can go jogging or meet your friends or buy a subway side because you don't work from home? There's all these things to think about in your quality of life. And so then you also think about, next slide, how do these things match up with the inventory in each different neighborhood? Because you're like, "Oh, I want to live in a brand new building with a gym in the building and a doorman and a roof deck and all these shiny bells and whistles. And I want it to be a co-op." Those things do not align. You will not find that. You will find that though, maybe in Williamsburg in a condo, in a brand new condo, or in downtown Brooklyn in a brand new condo. And there's some down in Gowanus. But if you want to be in Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, probably not going to find a brand new construction with a lot of amenities. There is just not a lot of space to do that there. And it's a mostly brownstone neighborhood. So if you want a co-op because you want to, one, closing costs are lower and purchase prices slightly lower also. And you want some of those pre-war, oh, I froze on a really good face there. Some pre-war details. You are going to want to be in a co-op. And you're just not going to find pre-war details in most new condos unless they have converted some older building, which is just not happening these days. And then amenities. So the amenities that you do want in the building, maybe it's not a gym, but it is a doorman. So that could be a co-op. Maybe it is you want a common courtyard, and a lot of pre-war co-ops have that. So you have to match with the type of property you want. Does it exist in the neighborhood you want to be in? Because those things just do not align unless you already know what neighborhood. But I always say, if you don't know what neighborhood, you're like, "I'm brand new to Brooklyn. I don't know where I want to live." The best thing for me to tell people to narrow things down is find one friend that lives in each neighborhood and say, go out to brunch with them in the neighborhood, ask them why they like living there, why they don't like living there, and then go see one listing in that neighborhood in your price point. And then based on what they've told you, you'll be like, oh, that aligns with what I want, or it doesn't align with what I want. And then you can move on until you've narrowed it down. Because there's a lot of great neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and you just got to figure out which one is for you. So next
You can
slide.
even do things
Go
like
ahead, John.
you can even do little weekend walking tours or biking around an area to get a lay of the land and cover a couple of different blocks and see what it's like on a Saturday, or see what life be like if you live there.
Yeah, go in though, take the train there. If it gets you're like, oh, I'm starting to lean towards Cobble Hill. Okay, take the train there at night. What is it like during rush hour? What is it like after on a weekday? What's there on the weekend? You want to see all shades of it. It's like a relationship. You want to see the good, the bad, the ugly. You're not just buying them off the most romantic first date ever. Because that's what it is. This is the love story of New York. You have to love it to want to live here. So where do you search? You search online. But what platform? I think that we have a backend database, right? That puts all of the listings into one place. But I will set you up there and you will get listings from there. I would say that StreetEasy has the most user-friendly public platform, and that's where I encourage people to look. Zillow owns StreetEasy, FYI, so you might be seeing double duty if you're looking there at both places. I would say that Redfin, Realtor.com, the listings aren't up to date. It's not so user-friendly in my opinion, so that's where I like to search. But some people sign up for 10 different platforms in hopes that they'll see something different that might not be on one platform. So that's where you're searching. And then we go next slide. Oh, and sorry, so you can stay there, but I'm going to say the searching is there are sometimes I'm going to get an email from a broker saying, hey, Victoria, you just closed this unit with me here. I'm going to get another unit in the building. I'm not going to put it out there yet. Do you have any buyers still? And I might get some of these, but there aren't a lot of secret listings anymore. It is very much, if there are things that are off market, the people that should know about it should know. So if you want to be buying in Red Hook, you definitely want to be talking to me because I'm the queen of Red Hook, because I'm going to know everything that's going to be off market there. And that's not on StreetEasy. Same thing for other neighborhoods. Find the person that's expert if you're trying to find something that's needle in a haystack. And then just when you're going to look and you start going to open houses, realize that the other broker represents the seller and the seller's fiduciary responsibility. They care about making sure they make the deal for the seller. Yes, they can care about you and seem nice, but they're trying to get the most money out of you for their seller because that's their job, is to get them the best deal for their seller. So once you click that you want to see something, don't write a message to the broker because people advertise to have their name on listings that don't belong to them. Say, hey, I want to see this address and I'll take you there. I'm thinking I'm talking a lot. Any points until we get up to making an offer and negotiating, John, that you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I would just say one of the things, of course, in real estate that you're seeing a lot lately is that there's not as much inventory. And sometimes that's just New York. There's never enough inventory in New York. It's just nature of the beast. But right now in the market, there's also a little bit of a limited inventory. And so one thing that I've had a lot of success talking to people about lately is just making a wish list and picking 5 or 10 things that you want in a property and then ranking them and scoring them and saying, this is an absolute must. This is I would love it, but could be okay. And then using that as a framework to look at different properties, because it can also get overwhelming. 5, 10, 20 properties, and none of them is exactly what you want. And then you end up in these loops saying, I like that property except for this thing, and I like that property except for this thing, and I like that property except for this thing. But then there was this property except for that thing, and then you keep just looping back and forth and never making up a decision. And then before you know it, someone else has bid on the properties and they're gone. Sometimes it can be useful to have a little bit of a framing on how you're approaching the properties. And you can even include things like a blackball option. So if it has 9 out of 10 things you want, but the 10th is the most important, and it's beyond some range of scope of your decisioning, you can just say I'm out. That's not worth it. And even things like price and different pieces can go in there too. But it helps to take a little bit of the emotion out of it, take a little bit of the confusion and overwhelm out of it too.
Yeah, be more pragmatic about it. Yeah, I have a wish list too. I tell people to make their wish list in the order that they want. And then I say, the top 3 are the things that you most want and that you should look for. And you're not going to get everything in one place because it's New York unless you're talking to millionaires here, multi-millionaires.
And then you could buy a place for 250 million if you want.
And still not have
There's
everything and you'll
no,
just pay to put it in.
yeah.
But that's things though too, is if you want to buy a co-op and you really want a dishwasher and there isn't one, all you have to do is check and see if they're allowed, because now there's something to learn about co-ops. They have a lot of strict rules. And if you've seen pictures of other units in the building and they have dishwashers, you can put the dishwasher in. If some things are figure outable.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we need to have about what you're looking for. And so we've been looking. So what happens usually the first weekend, you send, if it's in the springtime and there's a whole bunch of new inventory, you spend Saturday and Sunday and we go to a whole bunch of open houses and we download on what you like, what you don't like, because if you've seen a whole bunch of things, even if you were like iffy about it on the internet, you now have some perspective on what you should spend your time going to look and see, because the reality and the internet version have merged and you can understand to how to read the internet version. So when you show up, what it'll be like in most cases. So we do that big sort of education day out where we go look at a lot of stuff, go to a lot of open houses, and then we curate it further. So as new things come on the market, you'll be able to be more decisive about, okay, I'm not going to see this just because it's new. I already know I've seen a layout like this. I'm not gonna, it's not there. It's not close enough to the park. You've started to figure out what's really important to you, because we've made that wish list of 10, but that could change over time after you actually see property. And you're like, you know what? For me, I really want a covered porch in some piece of property in real estate in my life. And I went and saw one this weekend upstate. I was like, God, if I could only do it. John, maybe we should talk to you, see if I can get another mortgage. Probably out of the question. That's why they did best in final already on Monday, though. Best in final happens. So we've gone to see all these places, and then you fall in love with one, but so is 10 other people. Then you have to put in your offer. And best, you don't put in your best and final until they call for it. So we strategize on what the best and final offer situation, your first offer will be, and then what best and final will look like for you. And we value it right against other things that have closed and what's happening in the market and your interest rate. And we try to make a calculated decision about what's comfortable for you and also what pushing your boundaries a little bit might look like. And then hopefully you win the bid. I would say,
Yeah. And
go ahead, John.
even on that front too, there are, and this is where having the right team, having the right attorney, having the right agent and mortgage person can all come into play, because you have a lot of different strategies to win bids. There's speed. If you're the first bid in and they like it, then everybody else has to be better than you in some way. So they have to pay
Yep.
more, they have to have better terms, or they have to beat your offer.
Yep.
Or you can throw money at it. Obviously, if you pay a bunch, people like that. That's a strategy. When you might negotiate different contingency terms. So one thing that I'll do that I had a little bit of success with lately is doing creative contingencies in offers. I had a couple of sellers who were nervous that they were going to go into contract with someone and then find out 30 days, 60 days later that it was falling apart. And they were looking to move also on the back end of it. So what we talked about was how in my world, in the broker world, it's a little bit different from the bank world. We're much faster. So I can get someone an initial underwriting of their income, assets, and credit within a matter of days, sometimes even 1 or 2 days, but certainly within 4 or 5 or 6 days. So what I've done a time or two lately is splitting out contingencies. So when you go into contract, you'll have negotiations and contingencies in the contract. You can write whatever you want in the contract. And I'm not a lawyer, so don't take that from me. But technically you can write whatever you want in the contract as long as everybody agrees to it and it's legally enforceable and all that sort of stuff. And Jody will give you a better answer on that. But there's ways to put terms in there that make the sellers happy, that keep you protected, and that make your deal better than someone else's.
Yep.
So having the right team in place can help you win that bid over everybody else. Because if you like a place, odds are someone else likes it too. So you got to keep that in mind when you're bidding.
Yeah, how do you make yourself the most compelling and competitive offer to win the bid, which I feel like I've had a lot of success at. And I think that has to do with relationships with other brokers, helping my clients understand what the real market is. Also, though, you don't have to go for the properties that everybody else loves. There is this opportunity when there's things that are languishing on the market. Maybe it's just overpriced originally and then they had to drop the price a bunch of times, or the pictures are horrible. Like sometimes things are sitting on the market and you can show up and it's a great apartment. And are in a much more leveraged position if you're the only person putting an offer on that property. So don't discount things that have been on the market for 90 days because you think that, oh, what's wrong with it? There's something possibly not wrong with it, or was wrong with it for a lot of other people, but not for you. I think that's a good way to get out of the bidding war scenario too. We were talking before about your wish list, but I also think talk to people about what's their A, B, and C property. Like ideally, this is what I want, this is my A property, but you know what? I would be happy with this B property. And really, if I'd have to do it, I would take the C property and have to do all this work myself. There's different categories that we can think about how we grade property types and what the value of those would be for you. Because you're not going to pay for the B property the same price you pay for the A property. Okay, so I think that we've turned a lot. So then there's some things that we're negotiating, right? And some of these terms that help you get the win the offer, then also go into the contract, right? And so the contract terms, some of the things that would be in your contract are a contingencies, right? Your financing contingencies, and an inspection contingency. If you're buying the property as is, what's the date of the closing? Is there any repairs that we found in the inspection that need to be taken care of? That goes into the contract. Are we negotiating like seller concessions or those sort of things? These are the things that the lawyer will help you go through the due diligence before you sign the contract. So they're looking at the building financials. If it's a co-op, they're going to read the minutes. Oh, look here. They've been saying that they've been to fix this roof for the last 10 years and they don't have the money to do it. Oh, is there an assessment coming? They're going to look at all these things that need to be communicated and understood to see if it's what the risk level is to move forward and how much risk you're comfortable with. That's what
Another
my
thing,
financial advisor always asks me, like, what's your risk level? Are you a risky person or not risky person?
yeah. This is another thing also that's different in New York is that when you have an accepted offer in New York, that's not a contract.
Right.
So pluses and minuses from that. One, you can bid, you can get an accepted offer, and then if the due diligence comes through and there's weird stuff in there, you don't have to buy it. You can walk away. On the flip side, on the negatives, you can bid, you can get an accepted offer, and if you're not quick enough to get your contracts teed up, the seller can still keep showing it, and someone else could still come in and outbid you, and they could walk away and sell this other person. So you want to use it for its advantages, but also make sure that you're covering yourself and understanding that the flow of the whole process in New York, it's a little bit different than other places.
There's a lot of pressure from when the offer is accepted to contract signing because somebody can come scoop you out from under you and you can walk away. And so everybody wants to get all the information to you so you can do the due diligence and make sure all your questions are answered right away so that you'll sign the contract. And so there's no barriers for you to signing because until you sign, everybody's just holding their breath, waiting to release and let go and sigh
And
like, oh
it's
God,
not
okay, we can
common that
breathe
that
in.
happens, but it's particularly painful. So
Yeah.
you want to be that 1 in 1,000 that it happens to.
Listen, I had a deal like the first one of the only deals I've had in a long time that's ever happened where they accepted the offer. We sent out deal sheets and another offer came in $400,000 over our offer and my clients couldn't meet it and was like, we're just walking away.
Hard to pass up an extra 400.
Yeah, just lying around there.
That's New York for you.
It is New York for you. It was a very special, interesting property. You were paying a lot for the location and needed a lot of work, but some people just don't understand break the rules when you say this is best and final, and then they're kicking themselves. That wasn't really their best and final. Apparently, they had an extra 400K in their pocket. So getting into contract then is so everybody's doing this. We're doing our due diligence. We're negotiating the closing dates, the timelines, all that kind of stuff, so that then once all the contracts have been marked up, so the lawyers will send the contracts back and forth, marked up. Then once they feel comfortable, then they call you in and they say, okay, we're going to review the contracts and what you're agreeing to in this contract. And we'll sit you down and then have you sign the contract. And at that point, you need to have your 10% down check because most people are putting 20% down. So at a contract signing, you only have to put 10% down and you do that then. Once the contract is signed by both parties and you've given your escrow fees, then that's when the lawyers and the mortgage professionals start doing their real heavy lifting. So the lawyer, I'll quickly go because Jody's not here, will start doing more due diligence, surveys, title searches, background data that takes the time to collect and get that can be affects the deal further in. So not the initial due diligence like the minutes and everything like that. So it's the title, the survey, and other forms. And then that's the one most important thing right now is before you start working on your co-op application is you need to call John and make sure he has every single document he's requested of you. He has it. because you cannot submit your board application until you have your commitment letter. You're not going to get your commitment letter until the bank has everything they need so that they can put your package into underwriting. So I always, as soon as we get the contract signed and you're buying in a co-op or a condo, make sure John has every document they need, and then we can work on anything else after that. But he eats first.
And to an extent, that's your own for your own protection too,
Yeah.
because once you send in a board package or once you send a commitment letter to the seller side, that's you satisfying your contingencies. So in your contract, you have we keep tossing around this word contingency, and I'll take this moment to tangent off and just say a lot of this stuff also, you don't need to memorize all of this. You can call us. We're glossing over a bunch of stuff here, and when we talk, Victoria, I, or Jody, when we talk with you, we'll get into a lot of these things at a better depth. We're tossing out concepts here, but your contingencies are basically protections for you that say, if X, Y, and Z don't happen in a specific way, you can walk away from the contract and dissolve it and get your deposit back, and everybody just walks away. When you present your board package and you give a commitment letter to the seller side, you satisfy that contingency. So you don't have that protection anymore. So you want to make sure that everything you've done up to that point has been very thorough and you've covered all your bases and de-risked it for yourself so that you're not taking an unnecessary risk by getting ahead of yourself because you didn't get your paperwork in time. Again, this is for your own protection as much as it is for the flow of the process and the lender and the seller and everybody else, but just for your own interest, you want to make sure to get this stuff covered.
So it sounds like we're getting close to the closing then. What is happening in underwriting right now? Tell us about Aztec agreements and all that stuff.
Yeah, once you get your commitment letters, and again, that what a commitment letter is the bank is saying, we've reviewed your paperwork and we're committing to lend you this loan, contingent on whatever is left outstanding at that point. So there's always a couple of things that happen. There's closing conditions and there's final employment checks and things right before closing and stuff like that. But you want to knock out everything you can and de-risk it as much as possible and get as many things reviewed so that it's nice and comprehensive and de-risked. Then you get the Aztec agreement. When you're buying in a co-op, technically you're buying shares of a company. You're not buying real estate. You're buying shares of a company, and those shares come with a proprietary lease that allows you to occupy a unit in the building that is that company. So when you buy shares of a company and you place a lien against it, when you place a loan against shares of a company, there has to be a legal agreement between you and that company that everybody's on the same page that this is happening. So the Aztec agreement as part of your board package is that agreement between you, the bank, and the building, saying everybody understands what's going on and there's a loan being placed on against a set of shares that are part of this overall corporation. So anyhow, so you're doing your board package. The co-op gets to review your board package, decide as a business decision, as a company that is the building, do they want you as an owner? And Victoria will help walk you through a lot of that. And she's great at board package stuff too. She'll put together everything in the right way so that they understand how awesome you are and that they are happy to have you as a unit owner. And we'll get all of the financial stuff lined up. We'll make your numbers look their best and put your best foot forward so that the co-op will sign off and say, okay, sounds good, you're in. And then you have the lending side done, you have the legal side done by that point, you have the building side done by that point. So bit by bit, all of the pieces are coming together and falling into place. And then you get the green light from everybody to go ahead and set up the closing. And then it's a matter of just coordinating all the different parties. You have you and the sellers and the attorneys and the agents in the building and the payoff bank and all these different groups that all have to get in a room at the same time. So it's a little bit of a logistics and calendar game to find when does everybody have 2 or 3 hours to get together and where do they want to do it.
Yeah. And two things, that we do the final walkthrough within 24, 48 hours of the closing to make sure the property is being delivered to you in the condition is expected to be. And then my other advice is do not schedule your move on the day of the closing. It is the most way to make a stressful process even more stressful, and it will really put a damper on your day of you just bought a house. Now you have to deal with this. And oh, the closing's running late or it's getting postponed and we don't have a place to put our things that are at a moving truck outside this building we don't own. So you wait until the closing is done and then you schedule your move. So
Yeah.
I want
And
to open it up for
this,
questions. I know that was a lot, and I can't imagine if Jody actually made here. We talked so much about lots of interesting things that are happening right now in
yeah,
the.
just one little last comment there
Oh,
on
go
that
ahead, John.
timing. This is also part of the key of having the right timing expectations right from the start. Everything takes a little longer than you think it might in New York. And even things like leaving yourself enough time to move. So you want to have a little bit of overlap between your old place and the new place that you can move and not be rushed and have to have everything fall right into place. So it is important right from the start that you understand when is your target for moving and when does that mean that you need to get started and when does that mean that you need to be starting to be in contract and finding the property and when do you need all of these tumblers to fall. Again, expectation setting and preparation is super critical.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we are hoping people starting early. Start early, prepare, save, get your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Then
Even if
then
you're
hit
not
the
ready
ground
yet,
running.
you could still
What?
have a conversation with us and we'll get you ready so that 6 months from now you're ready.
That's
Here's
the
about
phone
too
call you're
early.
going to make to make it to help you get ready. It's not just this class. It's the follow-up resources we're going to send you that's actually talking to us about your specific situation and helping you guide on first steps. And it might be buying this year and it might be buying in 5 years, but we're going to help set you on a course to success if this is a goal you want to meet. And just focus on that and not all the background noise that's happening in the world that's out of your control. Focus on what you can control. What I'm saying to everybody right now in this very tumultuous time in the world. So I want to open it up for questions. I know we have a couple people still on the call and see if they want to take themselves off mute and jump in, or you can put a question in the chat or circle back on something.
And you can also reach out to us outside of this
Yeah, that too. It's
anytime.
just
We're
always nice
always,
to have
Victoria
questions.
mentioned at the beginning, I'll mention it again at the end here, that there's no obligation, no cost, whatever. We're happy to be a source of information. If you ever have questions, reach out anytime and we are happy to share.
Yeah, we just want to help people. I like helping people. This is the best part of my job.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting when we get to the finish line. I've helped you accomplish something and you did it. Okay, I guess no questions. So we'll hear from you afterwards and we'll follow up with an email with some resources and our contact info. And I want to thank everybody for coming today. You will get a copy of this recording so you can share it with anybody else as part of the decision-making process for you. A link to set up a 15-minute call with either of us, or like I said, our Buying into Brooklyn ebook. And if you decide to work with us, we'll set you up in our Basecamp, which is our project management tool, which is our library of resources that will be at your fingertips to help guide you through this
Make
process.
use of that. Victoria's got a phenomenal library of resources. It's super helpful if you let it be.
It's for people that really want to be nerdy about this and read every single thing and feel, and I think it's empowering. I think it's having the information feels you empowered in your decision making and more confident in what you're doing and makes it less scary and less stressful.
Yeah.
So,
And listen, I'm happy to go into professor mode too. If you ever want to know the ins and outs and whys and whatnot, I can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want if you're up for it.